Hey, so I'm a big fan of YouTube channels like Charisma on Command and books such as Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. Recently, though, I stopped to wonder about the shadow side of persuasive leadership. And in this short video, that's what I'd like to explore. And no, it's not really what you think it is. All right. So for the last 26 years, I've owned a company called Missing Link, and we focus on helping people be more eloquent and persuasive communicators. Now, this to me is obviously an unfair advantage, as an expert that can communicate will always be more successful than one that can't. I also believe wholeheartedly that the difference between a leader and a manager is their ability to get their point across.
I agree.
But there is a shadow side to persuasiveness. The obvious one being the tools of persuasion applied by unscrupulous sorts. People like Adolf Hitler spring to mind, but of course, any cult leader demonstrates this too. This is not the shadow side that I'm referring to. The side I'm talking about is one that I'm starting to recognize in myself and a lot of other business leaders. I'm looking at you, Elon Musk.
I'll say what I want to say.
It's one that runs the risk of seriously affecting the lives of the people that follow them. Us. This is when leaders are simultaneously persuasive and wrong.
Oh no, he didn't.
The problem with persuasive people and the problem that they face is that we're not just good at persuading others, we suffer the side effect of persuading ourselves too.
I hate when that happens.
And then this kind of crazy cognitive dissonance kicks in and gets way in the way of our rationality. Looking back at my company's history, I can see so many mistakes that I made that affected other people that I absolutely believed were right with no evidence whatsoever. Like the time I convinced bands like Fuzzy Gish to join our record company, Croak Room Records, despite having no knowledge of the industry at all outside of being a lighting designer.
I'm not mad, just disappointed.
Look, we ended up giving them their music rights back after realizing we were doing more harm than good, and thankfully we parted as friends, but still. Or the time that I persuaded my team, and this one's crazy, that the right thing to do to our biggest client was not to change our proposal to suit their needs, assuming that they would relent. They didn't, and we lost half of our revenue overnight. I was in my early 20s when this happened, but honestly, in the wake of my career, you will find many an instance of persuasive blunders.
Like in the beginning of this video, we say that Robert Cialdini wrote the book Persuasion. He actually wrote the book Influence, the psychology of persuasion. Sorry, Mr. Cialdini.
You see, my error was not seeing that eloquence and persuasion is akin to having a cheat code. It's not always factual. Sometimes it just sounds that way. So, what am I suggesting here? That we don't try to be more eloquent and persuasive? Absolutely not. Just that we use a lot more rigor to convince ourselves before we attempt to use eloquence to persuade others. I'm proposing 3 questions and 1 master strategy that should be obvious to all leaders, but I promise you it really isn't. Are you ready?
I was born ready.
Cool. Question number 1. If you were the voice of the opposition for this idea, what data and information would you bring to the debate? Question number 2, you got to ask yourself, is what information and data are you actually bringing to the debate? I can't tell you how often I just come to the debate, with a good idea, well presented, but maybe not as much evidence as I should have. And that brings me to question number 3, which is the amount of time you spent forming and researching your ideas, opinions, and strategies enough for what's at stake when people follow you? And look, I'm not suggesting here that, entrepreneurial leaders shouldn't trust their guts. Well, actually, that is kind of what I'm suggesting.
Awkward.
More just that we trust but verify, more than we currently are anyway. My friends, the reality is that being persuasive really is the ultimate form of privilege. It's how we've managed to build a thriving business serving top CEOs and leaders for the past quarter century. It really does open the world up to you and open up so many things. However, we can just never see persuasiveness as a proxy for rigor. And that's where the master strategy comes into play. If you truly do want to keep your eloquence in check, you need to level up your subordinates in the very skills that you use to persuade them. The only antidote that protects anyone from the tools and words of persuasive communicators is an understanding of those words and the tools behind them.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense.
That's what you need to do. You need to level people up in the very skills that you are using to persuade them so that they understand when they are being persuaded. And hey, when you're ready to do that, to level yourself up and the rest of your team, well, just where to find us. In the meantime, though, you can check out this video on how Aristotle himself suggested you apply the persuasive arts.